Hello, welcome to Undrafted Hockey Fan. I am Brad. Today we're talking about two big trades between the Colorado Avalanche and the New York Rangers. I almost said Devils. New York Rangers and the Colorado Avalanche, as well as the Minnesota Wild and the Nashville Predators. So today, if you're enjoying the content, if you're having a good time, hit like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify or Apple, go give it a rating, give it a star, give comments, whatever you got to do. It really helps out small creators like me. And actually today we're doing a new thing. I'm going to actually in the middle of the segment, we're going to actually do a music recommendation. So I'm a huge music fan, hockey and music's big one. And I'm not your top 40s guy, I'll tell you, man. But I'm having some good time with some good music, some good new music right now. So anywho, let's get into this and let's do the small trade. I'm going to just do like a nice small trade. We're going to do the Minnesota Wild one, who ended up trading for Gustav Nyquist from the Nashville Predators. So Gustav Nyquist was making $3.2 million. And so what they did is they ended up trading for Gustav Nyquist. The Minnesota Wild sent a second round pick, a 2026 second round pick, for a half retained Gustav Nyquist. Mind you, Gustav Nyquist is a 35-year-old. He's a 35-year-old, can play center. I think he's better as a winger. But what you're seeing with him is this year, I mean, his production is absolutely down. 21 points in 57 games. I'm very sure that he actually was traded to the Minnesota Wild before. I believe they like him. I'm pretty sure he's traded before. If I'm looking up signs and trades, he was traded. So funny enough, if we look at the trade, it was in 2023. I believe it was. Let me see. 2023. The Minnesota Wild acquired Gustav Nyquist for a 5th round pick, which is from the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, I mean, they're just very fond of him. They just don't want to pay him the money that he wants owed, right? They're like, hey, we'll take him for half retained for a couple of games. And that year when they traded for a 5th round pick, he had 22 points in 48 games. We're looking at what he's doing now. He's only got 21 points, 57 games. So his production is actually down. And that's a pretty expensive getting a second round pick, or paying a second round pick for him. But the thing is that they are retaining more salary. And I think it was just one of those things that Minnesota is looking to pounce now, right? So when you look at Minnesota in their position, they don't have a Kaprizov right now. They're looking to make upgrades because they don't know where they're going to be, and they only have so much cap space because of those Zach Parise and the Ryan Suter contract still, right? So when you look at a Nyquist, he can slot in. I'm looking at Puck PD, by the way. He can slot in on that top wing line until Kaprizov can come back, and then at that point you can start fitting him in throughout the rest of the lineup. You can move him around and everything. Again, you're having for the rest of the year. He's older. Again, it's not a bad deal. So I'm actually really happy with Minnesota Wild. Again, I think it was way too much for a second round pick. I mean, for a second round pick, make it 2 second round picks. And he probably could have got Brock Nelson. Right? That's the kind of equivalency here, because I know Brock Nelson's going for a first round pick most likely. But if you're doing a second round, like if you're doing 2 second round picks, that's probably basically what I've been told is. If you give it's relative, right? You know, a high first round pick is different than a low first round pick, right? But basically what I was told is that by multiple people is that if you want to give him a second round pick, that's equivalent to getting like 2 third round picks, right? So similar when we saw the Devon Taves trade, right? We saw 2 second round picks were traded from the Colorado Avalanche to the New York Islanders for Devon Taves, and that's kind of the equivalent of the first round pick. Again, it's relative, right? What level second round picks you're getting, right? So with Minnesota, they're hoping it's like a mid to late. I mean, they're hoping for a late round, second round pick. But again, it seems a little bit high in my opinion. I don't know if I would have done it for that. I mean, it might have done it for like a third. But anyways, that's Minnesota. You know, they're trying to make some moves now. I like this. I think they're just kind of preparing for whether the Kaprizov comes back. We will see, right? But again, I'm curious. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, because that's like a decent relative trade right there. So let's jump into the quick music section, and then we're gonna go into the Colorado trade. So I want to talk about the one band that I'm listening to right now. The one song I'd say, not band, is the band Senses. Got a female lead. They do the song cover of Good Luck Babe. That of course Chappell Roan. It's a pop punk version of it and everything, so they did a really good job. I really like it, big fan of it. You know, the chorus in my opinion is the best. I think there's a lot of good parts to this song. So that's kind of where I think about. I'm like, okay, like there's good potential here as a band that could actually be coming up. All right. And the other one that I'm really into right now, a little bit older, talk about state champs, around the world and back. Again, state champs, phenomenal song. I've been literally falling asleep to that one, because it's such a great song with Jewel Vera as the female singer in there too. Again, they did a great job. So definitely go check those out if you got a chance, because they're just a good time, man. They're good quality songs. So big fan. So we're moving on to the other massive trade. Again, there's a lot of parts to this, and the reason that's why I'm bringing it to the second part, and I didn't want to just like, hey, we're going to have to break this up for quite a bit. So what ended up happening, we saw a trade between the Colorado Avalanche and then New York Rangers. So who did the Colorado Avalanche acquire? It was Ryan Lindgren at half retained. We're talking about a 27-year-old defenseman, and they pick up him. Hank Kempf, who is a 7th-round pick from the New York Rangers as well, so just prospects as well. And Jimmy Vessy at $800,000 cap it. He's a 31-year-old left winger, 6 points in 33 games. And then you have Lindgren is more of a defensive defenseman. It's for Juuso Parssinen's 24-year-old center, who was originally acquired from the Nashville Predators. Calvin Haan, who was signed as a UFA this offseason, and then a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. So just to give you a breakdown, let's talk about the players and what we're getting with some of these players. So Ryan Lindgren is a defensive defenseman. He's talking about JFresh, by the way. It says this is his quotes, by the way. Not long ago, he was a capable, steady presence on the Rangers' top pairing recently. He's been the bane, the absolute bane of Adam Fox's existence. Can he bounce back? In my opinion, I think Ryan Lindgren is underrated. He's a great defensive defenseman and everything. So I don't know why they haven't tried to use him more. But to me, it doesn't make sense. So I'm like, okay, what are we doing here, guys? And so with Ryan Lindgren, I thought either you have an offensive guy in Adam Fox, again, a full-blown great defenseman. And then if you want to, in this case, you're looking at a guy he's a defensive defenseman. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you're not going to expect points out of this guy. The thing is he needs a new contract as well. So he's a UFA this upcoming summer. So Rangers are like, hey, let's try and get something for this guy already. And mind you, the Rangers already made the trade for Ryan or JT Miller earlier this year. So they're going to continue trying to acquire and get better. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing more of these trades where you're seeing Stanley Cup contenders trade with Stanley Cup contenders in other conferences, right? So that's why we saw a lot of the buzz of like Carolina and Vancouver with like Nyquist and Pettersson this past summer, right? There's like, you want to see those big swaps across conferences because you're not going to see a trade between like, that's why like the Dylan Cousins with the Detroit Red Wings, it seems like unlikely because Dylan Cousins is a young, good forward. And Buffalo's like, well, we don't want to verse him for the next, 10 years of his existence. So especially with both teams that are on the rise. So a great defensive defenseman here. Again, it's a great little pickup. I think I'm happy with them on that. But again, is it the biggest move? Is it what Colorado needs? I don't think so. And to me, you're gonna now you have Ryan Lindgren who's on your 3rd pair, I guess. Because now you have Samuel Girard on your left side. You have Devontae, so you're not taking out the 1st pair. So you short up your bottom 6 or your bottom pair defenseman, which is good, I guess. Right? Again, he's not a huge point getter, 19 points in 54 games, which isn't terrible. But again, you're playing with Adam Fox, right? So now you're going to go to a lot less minutes. It does definitely shores it up. So we'll see. Again, I think definitely the center help is what the Colorado Avalanche are looking for. But is this an improvement? Yeah, I'd say so because you're moving out Calvin Haan, who was again 7 points in 44 games, not a hugely producing guy. He's also 33, right? So if the Colorado Avalanche can re-sign Ryan Lindgren to a 3, 4, 5, 6-year contract, like that makes more sense. And they don't, they just let him walk. That's fine too. But again, you have an opportunity to sign this guy. You get him under control. You get him at cheap right now. And maybe you can sign him for like $5-6 million for like 3, 4, 5 years. So we'll see. Let me know what your thoughts on the Ryan Lindgren part, right? So Hank Kempf, again, he's a player. He's a 7th-round draft pick from 2021, playing the NCAA with Cornell University, 7 points in 28 games. Not a huge point getter. And he as a D man, he's doing fine. He's a senior at this point with the with the University of Cornell. Not a huge deal. So Calvin Hahn's one of those guys. Moving on to him on the side of moving over to the Rangers. Well, actually, sorry, I keep jumping over. Let's finish the Colorado side. Jimmy Vessy is another guy who's kind of bounced around. We remember seeing him in the Amazon documentary with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He ended up signing with the New York Rangers at one point, and he ends up signing actually they liked him so much they gave him a 2-year deal. So they move off of him, but mind you, these guys bounce around quite a bit. He was originally with the Rangers. I think was he even drafted by the Rangers? He was drafted by the Nashville Predators. They must have let him go as well. So they was originally drafted by the Nashville Predators and played with the New York Rangers in his ELC. Was he traded? Let's look at the trades. So yeah, he was traded for. I was traded to Buffalo too, but this guy's been traded a lot. Holy smokes, poor guy. Anyways, so he was traded to his rights were traded to the New York Rangers. They signed him. They trade him to the Buffalo Sabres. Then he goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Then he goes to the New Jersey Devils. Then he goes back to the New York Rangers. Signs a 1-year extension, and then he signs a 2-year extension with them. And now he's been traded out of the Rangers. Man, the Rangers are like, yes, no. They're just kind of moving around a ton, which is kind of crazy. So this guy's got 6 points in 33 games. Again, 31 years old, a little bit older, more of like a bottom 6 kind of guy. So it's someone that the Colorado Avalanche can acquire. They can throw him in. He's more of like an extra guy. But again, you have him as a just in case guy. He's a guy that can produce a little bit in your bottom 6. And if we're looking at what Jay Fresh has to talk about him, he's just a bottom 6 defensive defenseman. He's good at drawing penalties and everything, and good at even strength defense. So that's a good little pickup right there. So moving on to the other part, we're talking about Juuso Parssinen. Now, the curious thing about Juuso Parssinen, and this is why I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about this as well, is Juuso Parssinen was already moved this year. This is his second trade this year. So we're looking at what happened earlier this year. He was originally on the Colorado Avalanche. And so what ended up happening is the Nashville Predators traded Juuso Parssinen and a seventh round pick for Andre Pavel and a 3rd round pick. Mind you, both these guys were in the last years of their contracts. At the time, Andre Pavel, just 24 years old. He's like a guy, and then it was a guy that was traded. And at the time when Juuso Parssinen got traded, he's a center, by the way. So they were trying to pick up a younger center. The Colorado Avalanche were. He had 5 points, 15 games at the time of the trade. Again, and mind you, moving at the end of this trade as well, Juuso Parssinen, he is, let's see, how is he doing right now? I'm pulling it up right now. Juuso Parssinen at this point in the season has 11 points in 37 games. So he only, since the trade, he's played 22 more games. He's got 5 more points. So it's just not working out with that wasn't working out with the Colorado Avalanche. So they're like, hey, trade him to the New York Rangers, see if they want to work with them, see if they can get something out of him, and see if it ends up working. So, and again, so it's interesting because like it feels like there's a trade of guys that are not working. So it's like, oh, you have like you have a forward, we have a forward. Here, you can have our Juuso Parssinen for Jimmy Vessy. Oh, you have a defenseman who's not working for a defenseman who's not necessarily working. Here, have Calvin Haan for Ryan Lindgren. And in my opinion, the reason I'm wearing the Colorado Avalanche hat is because, in my opinion, Colorado wins this trade, right? And also they're paying the higher price as well. So mind you, if you think about the equivalence of these trades, you see a Juuso Parssinen for a Jimmy Vessy, basically. And you can throw and then throw in the pick on the Colorado Avalanche side, or the prospect on the Colorado Avalanche side, and Hank Kempf, who they're getting. That's the 4th round pick, right? And basically you're doing Haan and a 2nd round pick for Ryan Lindgren, and Ryan Lindgren is absolutely the best player in this trade. So I think this is more of a Colorado Avalanche win. I wonder if they end up trying these guys out. I mean, mind you, we still have like 6 days before the trade deadline on Friday. So, and today's Saturday at this point. So we're looking at it. We're looking at these guys, and they're going to try out and see if they work. If they do, great. If they don't, then like you can flip them in a couple days too, right? Like it's more of maybe a salary move in this case. It looks like the Rangers actually end up getting about $1.5 million more in cap space back, so that works out really well for them. And then of course the Colorado Avalanche have a ton of cap space left over because they had a decent amount of cap space left over because of the Landeskog being out. So look at the current cap space with the Colorado Avalanche. They still have $3.2 million, almost 3.3. So they could still get like a $6 million player half retained. So there's still some opportunities there for the Colorado Avalanche to continue to make moves. And we know because they have this is again, they traded both their starting goalies. They made the trade for Juuso Parssinen, right? They traded out Rantanen. This is their 5th trade, I think, of the year already, just on their roster. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up. I think I'm very sure this is their 5th trade of the year. With again on the roster, which to me is the kind of the crazy part, right? Yeah, you have the Ryan Lindgren trade, you have the Marty Necas and the Rantanen trade. You have a use of Parsons, like I said before. You did Blackwood for Georgiev. You did Scott Wedgwood for a Noonan as well. This is all. Oh, and then you also did Tucker Pullman and Eric Branson. I mean, that's fine. It's a smaller trade, right? We're talking about off the roster. You're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades already. Like Colorado is trying to win now, which I think is huge. I love that for them. We want to see more action like this. So absolutely huge. I love this at all. I love all this. This is so much fun. So we're gonna do a quick break and just kind of finish up clean up some more stuff on this for the trade, and then we will jump into a little bit more NHL news. So stay tuned to Undrafted Hockey Fan. Appreciate you sticking by. It might not feel like it, but spring is right around the corner. You know how you can tell? Golfers are hitting the links, and we have some tournaments to talk about. And if you want to do more than just talk, put your money where your mouth is. Get in on all the tee to green action with DraftKings Sportsbook. From Thursday's opening round through the closing round Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with tournament props, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. And if you've never bet on golf before, it's easier than you think. Just pick up something simple like a golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's just that easy. Now we got some tournaments coming up. We got the Puerto Rico Open, the Players Championship, the Valspar Championship, the Texas Children's Houston Open. Maybe you can bet for Stefan Jaeger to win. Maybe a little Scotty Scheffler or a little Bryce Garnett. Whatever it is, you can get in on the action. And here's something special for first timers. New to DraftKings customers, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit cpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 160 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. So moving on to some NHL news. Again, I think that Colorado Avalanche ended up winning this trade. I think it makes sense. But I'm really curious. So what your thoughts are. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate it. So moving on to a couple more things. I just want to knock out a little bit of news. Today we just saw a goalie goal, a untraditional goalie goal. What ended up happening it was at the end of the game, Islanders versus Preds, and so what ended up happening is Sorokin. So the puck it was shot on Sorokin. The net was empty, right? So it was a shot on Sorokin. It bounces off Sorokin, and goes onto the stick of Steven Stamkos. Steven Stamkos, in my opinion, I watched the video. Go watch it. Lazily tries to put it back to the point to the defenseman, and it doesn't hit the defenseman's stick. It ends up going so far, it ends up going all the way back to the goal to their national net for their 7th goal, for the Islanders' 7th goal of the game. So it was a 7-4 win, and because Sorokin was the last person to touch the puck on the Islanders, because they hit him, it goes in, and so he get a untraditional goalie goal, which is phenomenal. I mean, good for Sorokin. I'm happy for him. And it's cool to see a goalie goal. It doesn't matter how, you just like to see goalie goals because, hey, it's cool. Goalies don't score very often, right? So love to see it. So talking about Andrei Vasilevsky, again, one of the number 1 goalies in the league. I mean, argue that probably Hellebuck is there right now, going to probably for his 3rd Vezina trophy. But Andrei Vasilevsky is no slouch at all. And we saw that, remember, last year he had a back surgery. And there was definitely a very slow start, kind of missed training camp. And now we're looking at a guy who in his last 8 games this season, he has 8 wins and a .945 save percentage, which is phenomenal. To make it even crazier, he has allowed just 3 goals in his last 4 games for a save percentage of .973. I mean, Andrei Vasilevsky, if you thought he was gone and you thought he was old, absolutely not. He's absolutely still killing it, which is phenomenal. But again, it's one of those where you're like, hey, dude, like it's Andrei Vasilevsky. What are we talking about here, guys? What do you think you're doing? So, anywho, it's pretty crazy to me. So, move on to a little bit more news. Supposedly, JT Miller has rejected a trade, or had rejected a trade to the Colorado Avalanche before being traded to the Rangers. So, which is really interesting because you look at the way the Rantanen trade worked out and everything as well. I wonder if Rantanen could have gone to the Vancouver Canucks, but we knew the rumors are talking about. JT Miller said, "I will only waive my no movement clause to go to the New York Rangers," and that is, of course, as you all know, that's what happened. We saw it was a Will Cooley, a prospect and a first round pick. I think some along those lines were traded. It was like, Will Borgen was traded in with the Kakko deal, so never mind. So again, we're seeing that JT Miller, again, of course, he's rejected. That's his choice. It's his prerogative because he has that option with a no movement clause. He earned it. That's the thing, is you earn what you're given in the contract, right? Vancouver Canucks signed this massive contract. They give him these type of clauses because they think he's going to stick around long term. You bet on them sticking around long term because you hope they do, right? So it's a bummer that the Vancouver Canucks were kind of strongholded, that he didn't have any. He didn't even have like a 3-team option or anything. It's just a full blown no move clause. But that's the risk of you doing it. And in my opinion, you end up. So what I've been told is that if you want a no movement clause in your contract, you're going to take less money, right? So if a player has making $7 million a year, $8 million a year, they want a full blown no move clause. They have to really sign for $7 million a year to get the full blown no move clause, because now you can't. It's hard to move that. You can't move that contract because now it's under the player's discretion, right? So very interesting. So, a very unfortunate injury going from the Calgary Canadians. Kirby Dach will miss the rest of the season with a right knee injury. He actually had to go do surgery. In 57 games, he had 22 points. This guy is just so injury prone. It is a tough look. This guy was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Montreal Canadiens. They were thinking, like, this guy's going to be our second line center. Phenomenal. He ended up going on the wing a little bit too. And it's not working out, which is a total bummer for the Canadiens, because you have all these young guys that you want them to work out. But the injury prone thing is huge. Like, your best ability is availability. I mean, mind you, unless you're McDavid, even if you're McDavid and play half the season, like, you're still better than most players in the league. So, it's just tough, especially for this kid. I know he wants to get back, so hopefully he can work out, get some PT, and get to a point where he's going to be successfully just ready to go back into it for training camp this upcoming fall. So again, the Canadians, they're in a rebuild, so it's not a great blow, right? They're not like they're fighting for the playoffs or anything. But this may end up fast forwarding their David Savard trades, their Joel Armia trades, their Jake Evans trade. So we'll see if those things end up happening a little bit faster, just so they can get another roster player back just to fill in for Kirby Dach and everything. So moving on, it looks like the Canes aren't believed to be close to Mikko Rantanen's $14 million ask. Well, so this is the interesting part, and I've been talking about this in my videos before. If you look at what $14 million a year is in free agency, it's 7 years in free agency. $14 million a year is $98 million per year, which comes out to Carolina Hurricanes can offer that 8th year. So if you want to make the $98 million, $98 million divided by 8 years, it's $12.25 million per year. So if the Canes are smart, they'd offer him at least $12.25 million per year. And to me, that's the equivalent, right? That's what Rantanen's going to be getting on the market. Supposedly, they've offered him an over $100 million a year. So if you're looking at $14 million a year times 8, so if we go even if it's $100 million a year, right? 100 divided by 8 years, that's $12.5 million a year. That's still huge. That's, by the way, Nathan MacKinnon is making 12.6. So you're making this, if you did an 8-year contract at 12.5, you're making almost as much as Nathan MacKinnon. And arguably, Rantanen is not as good as Nathan MacKinnon. And that's just it. He's just not better than Nathan MacKinnon. Full stop. Absolutely not. So Rantanen's extremely good. Probably not worth the $12.5 million a year. $14 million times 8 years is $112 million a year. That is crazy. Like, it's crazy. It would honestly be one of the biggest contracts we've seen. Because like I said, Leon Draisaitl was the first one to do it. $14 million for 8 years. And he'll be with the Oilers next year, starting at $14 million. Which he deserves. He's one of the top 3 players in the league. Nathan MacKinnon, Leon Draisaitl, and Connor McDavid. I can't believe the Oilers have both of them and have not won a Stanley Cup yet, which is crazy. But again, we'll see. I don't think Rantanen, he might get it just because the cap's going to be jumping up so much. But we kind of have to change our mindset on what players are looking for and what's proper for getting these numbers correct. So going on to the next bit of news, talking about Rantanen still. Looks like the Ducks may want to take a big swing at Mikko Rantanen. Yeah, of course. There's the Avs, the Colorado Avalanche should be making a big swing for Rantanen, right? Like all these teams should be making a big swing. Like think about every team. They should be trying to go for Mikko Rantanen. Like I don't know what we're talking about, guys, here. Like, of course the Ducks should, right? The Ducks, Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, Buffalo, like all these places should be trying to get it. He's going to be an absolute hot commodity if he goes to free agency. So will Mitch Marner. And so far, they haven't had any talks. I think Mitch Marner ends up signing, depending on how well he does in the offseason, I think they end up signing him anyways in the offseason. It just kind of depends on how far they go in the playoffs. If the Toronto Maple Leafs can go to Game 7 in the second round, maybe a little bit different. They sign Marner, but I think they're going to try and keep the band back together anyways. So it looks like Dallas Stars are also looking at getting Mikko Rantanen. Crazy. Who would have thought as well? And also one thing he's talked about, again, when we're talking about Mitch Marner, a free agent replacement for Mitch Marner could be Mikko Rantanen. So this is I keep talking about this with Rantanen. There's certain culture fixtures, right? So if you look at a lot of teams, they have a certain types of players that are in the organization. So I'm a Detroit Red Wings fan, fully, and so you look at teams' cultures, right? If you look at the Washington Capitals, huge Russian culture, right? You saw Kuznetsov, you had Kuznetsov, you have Ovechkin, of course, you have Protas, like these, like Russians like going there because they get their countrymen, right? If you look at Finnish teams, you're looking at Dallas, you're looking at Florida, you're looking at Carolina. Hence one of the reasons Carolina pursued Mikko Rantanen. Mind you, they did it without getting an extension. That's their fault. And if you're looking at other teams, Red Wings have a ton of Swedes. Vancouver has a ton of Swedes. Like there's certain teams that you have to kind of like. Rangers are more like an American team. Like a lot of American players want to go there. JT Miller is one of them, which is why I think that Mika Zibanejad is struggling, is because there's not a ton of Swedes on there. I don't know if there's any Swedes on there, right? And if you look at the Red Wings, you have Vladimir Tarasenko, a Russian. There's no other Russians on the team, so he feels a little left out. There is not that they don't know English, but there is a gap there, right? When I went to France, there was a little bit of a gap, right? It was harder to connect with people when my wife and I went to France, just because we were talking English, they were talking French. It's just there's a little bit of a gap there. There's cultural, there's certain euphemisms, there's certain things that you're trying to make jokes, right? Like they aren't hitting because they don't understand the language or the culture. So I think Rantanen needs to sign with Florida or Dallas or anything like those, because that's gonna be best for his long-term career. And I'm surprised that Mikko Rantanen, I think the problem is that he didn't see himself getting traded. I think that was the biggest shock. And so I think that's the hardest part about this, is that you're like, is it like, it was such a shock to the system. I think you kind of just give him the $14 million just because it's hard. Again, I don't think Mikko Rantanen is worth $14 million a year. I think in Carolina, he is worth $14 million a year. In Florida, he's not. In Dallas, he is not. Again, those are no income state, right? Tax states. I think in Carolina, you have to pay a little extra because it's harder to bring in free agents. And you already have a Finnish culture there. So that's the goal, right? I think you have to pursue like a Patrick Laine or something like that too. Like look for guys that are of this nature, because then you build a culture around that. Like it just makes sense to me. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. I think maybe I'm crazy, but that's how I've always thought about this. So moving on, we'll also see that Seth Jones, Blackhawks looking to trade Seth Jones. He's been pretty adamant about wanting to get traded. I think the culture of the Chicago Blackhawks needs to be changed. I think they need to bring in a different ton of different players. Looks like they're wanting youngish players for Seth Jones, but again, it's hard to take on that $9 million cap for like another 5 more years. So is it like, what are you going to get back for Seth Jones? It's going to be more of a cap dump than it is going to be a like actually trying to get assets back. We'll see. There's supposedly some talks with Dallas. And he's also open to going to Columbus as well. So Columbus, I think, would absolutely love to have him back as well. That would be huge. But we'll see. Who do you think that Seth Jones ends up getting traded to? Canucks, go back to Canucks. Looks like they've offered a 5-year deal to Brock Besser at $8 million a year. It looks like that Brock Besser, because it's one of his, I think he's like 28-ish, so he's going to want that long-term contract. So he's going to want the more term, more security, because it's his last big contract, right? And the difference between a 5-year contract at $8 million a year and a 6-year contract at $8 million a year is $8 million. So of course he wants to get his bag while he can. So, looks like, dude. Okay, so talking about the Oilers need to do an upgrade. Not an upgrade in net. They need an upgrade in their backup goaltending in case Stuart Skinner cannot do it. It's not, so there's so many talks about like, oh, like they should go after John Gibson. Like Skinner, like Gibson is a really enough, and people are like, oh, is Gibson an upgrade on Skinner? It's not about being an upgrade. It's about the stability on both the backup goalie and the starting goalie, right? Now, instead of a starter goalie in Skinner and a backup goalie in Pickard, you have a 1A Skinner and a 1B Gibson. So it's a tandem in that sense. You can rotate them out so you're not overworking Skinner, you're not overworking Gibson, and you don't have to lean on them so heavy, especially because the goaltending is just not phenomenal there. Again, Gibson has like a 915 save percentage this year on the Ducks. So you want to get a good, while he's hot, get him, right? Send him out and everything. So, of course, there's some Braden Shen talk as well. St. Louis Blues look like they're really open for business, looking to move for like Braden Shen, Robert Thomas. I would love a Kyrou. And so we'll see on that as well. Alex Tuch, some trade rumors as well. But again, we're going to be seeing a ton of these in the next couple of weeks. Yanni Gourde is a big one. I think that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to try and pursue, because for that third line center spot, they would love a Brock Nelson, but Brock Nelson's probably going to go for a first round pick, similar to Mikael Granlund. Speaking of Finnish guys, a Finnish player, Mikael Granlund, goes to Dallas Stars. Crazy, right? I bet you he resigns there too, because guess what? Huge Finnish culture. Like, what? Crazy. So I think if Toronto can do some bargain bin shopping and get 2-for-1 deal, right? Like we just saw with Chicago and McCabe and Lafferty, I think Toronto should be going for the Yanni Gourde and Brandon Tanev. I think that'd be phenomenal for them. And then also try and go pick up Luke Shen, maybe. I think that'd be a great little pickups in there as well. So anyways, let me know what your thoughts are. This is a little hockey podcast, little news. We're going to be doing a lot more of this week. So let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. I love you guys. Love you. See ya. Bye.